Welcome back to Cougar Chronicle, and we're so glad you're here with us. We are joined once again by
Michael Bessette, our Assistant Superintendent. So glad to have him here.
Thank you.
Remember last month we changed some things up. We talked kind of old school, new school type of pieces.
Which was great.
We're going to continue a little bit of a journey. You know, here's the thing is, you get through March, and we talk about, we jokingly as teachers, I always called it the doldrums, or the Ides. You get the Ides of March. And it's that tough period of, you know, teachers are kind of at their wits' end, parents are at their wits' end, students are at their wits' ends. And it's sometimes I think it's easy to forget the joy or the why.
That's a good point. Yes.
Michael and I had always talk about the, you know, for me, it's I have a get-to life. We talked about that back when I first interviewed, and I get to do these things. And sometimes I think we have to be reminded. So I thought we had joked about talking about kind of the joy of education.
And you know what? I need it because mud season's really hard for me. My
What is
alignment
mud
goes
season?
out.
It's
Welcome to New Hampshire. Lots of like
I'm
big,
sure it's self-explanatory.
wicked big divots, and your alignment goes out. Your tires get blown, depending on where you drive. So I need a little joy,
Thank you
Michael.
for warning me about
Well,
that.
I'm hoping I can bring you a little joy talking about some things in education.
We're turning that around.
Well, you know, talking about spring and revitalizing yourself, and you know, education's a hard profession, right? You know, you work really hard to try to bring out the best in kids, to work with people, you know, to try to do that collaboratively, and it takes a lot of energy. And so, as John and I were kind of talking about what might be a nice kind of a spring forward mentality, you know, how to revitalize yourself, reflecting sometimes is a good way to do that, right? And I was thinking a little bit about some of those joyful moments I had, and some of the questions people have asked me over the 30-year plus career I've had in education now, about what brings out the joy. And for me, one of the most poignant questions people like to ask is, what joy do you find being an administrator? Because, you know, people see the problems. They see the things that we engage, putting out fires, whatever it happens to be, but they very rarely sometimes see us enjoying some of the things that other educators get to enjoy. And teaching for me, I wanted to be a teacher by accident. You know, I fell into teaching. I originally was going to be a marine biologist and then a fighter pilot and something else. You know, so I was all over the map, and it turns out that I loved teaching, but I loved the toys and the science and the kids in middle school. But I had so much fun with the labs that I would produce, and I was a natural person to want to do problem solving with kids. We would set up opportunities to, you know, to explore the school for a virus, and we would let the kids do these activities. I would let the kids do these activities where they would just get their hands dirty, and we would learn how to identify bacteria and virus. Those are all wonderful moments, but as an administrator, you know, you think back and you say, well, where does that happen? Well, it happens for me as an administrator. I still work with kids. Every single year since I've gotten here, and you saw it this year for the first time. I've been asked by Beth Perkins and the fifth grade crew over at New London to come over and to provide a lesson on Halloween about teaching about the zombie fungus, cordyceps fungus, right? And a lot of people know that my father's a pretty reputable mycologist, written I think 40 books at this point.
No way.
Oh yeah. So
okay, got it.
And so, you know, I was able and have been able to teach that very exciting class for me, and hopefully make it exciting for the kids around cordyceps fungi. And I can tell when I get them, and I hook them, and I can see that look in their eye, you know, where they kind of get it. That to me is pure joy. And so I've kept on doing that every year, and I'll hopefully keep on doing that every year to keep on, you know, bringing that joy that I love in teaching to the kids. But as an administrator, I also teach adults all the time. And that's one of the things I think that I've been able to kind of share the joy with other people when they say, as an administrator, where do you find joy in that work? I'm still teaching. I just teach principals, or I teach assistant principals, or I teach whatever the audience is, teachers on occasion, right? So I have to find the joy in teaching no matter where the teaching goes. You know, is it working with an individual child, a teacher, you know, a principal? And so joy for me is the act of teaching.
And I will tell you, it is.
I love that. Thank you.
First of all, I'm going to embarrass him because hopefully up on my shoulder, Greg's throwing up a picture of that I have of Michael teaching the zombie fungus. We'll show that out to him. But it is amazing to watch.
Is it
really? One, he's a great teacher.
It.
There are things about Mr. Bessette, that not everybody knows, but at one point was a teacher of the year as a science teacher growing up. And so
didn't know.
I totally see why, and I don't want to embarrass him or anything,
enthusiasm.
but you see the value of that stuff. And when you go, why do people win awards, or why are people why are they thought of as that kind of educator? That zombie fungus lesson was so fun, and it's one of those things I think you could have spent hours going through the whole thing, and the kids, you know, the questions, and he'll put the picture up, and you're, ooh, that's gross, or what are that? But it's just an absolute blast. And this year, as you could tell from the photo, we actually dressed up as an SAU, so he's actually in his Mr. Spock science officer, science officer,
Okay, I
first
love
officer
that.
thing. And so it's fitting for the whole thing.
No ears, though.
No ears.
We
No
couldn't
pointy
find that,
ears.
no, but it was just, but those are the kind of pieces they go through. For me, it's that, if you remember last month, we had Jennifer Collins-Duda, who was with the Peak and
Yes.
the paraeducator,
Yes.
talked about the light bulb moment.
Yes.
For me, it's very much that coaching, loved being engaged and involved with athletes and seeing them develop. Capacity building is my passion. I want to see, I want to get people to take the training wheels off and ride the bicycle themselves. That's my moment. And so as we develop that capacity and those abilities, when you see somebody taking a skill that you 2 months ago were battling with them and applying it, and then the light bulb goes off in that administrator or that teacher, that piece, and then you see how that has that impact. That's the part that's amazing, because I jokingly say my goal is to work myself out of a job. I want to have a series of people that can do things. When I was in Missouri, we used the joke of a week, is that I wanted to be missing for a week before anybody realized that I was gone. Like, if you could do that, then you knew that you had built that capacity within.
Right.
Now, of course, being 6'3", 320 pounds and being able to be seen from space, it's a little hard to disappear.
I want to ask this question, though. I want to flip the table for a second. Do you have the box or the folder from your teaching days? Do you still have
yes.
it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I still have the box.
Oh, yeah.
right?
Mine's a shelf,
Yeah.
right? It's
Okay.
just a shelf, and all of the
Letters, notes,
Yeah,
cards, the things in it.
absolutely, without a doubt.
So, you know, I think about the joy of teaching all the time, and in that award that I got this little crystal thing, and it says it's a quote from Einstein about you know, the real role of a teacher is not to basically fill a bucket; it's to ignite a fire in learning, right?
I love that.
And so when you start thinking about that message in my box, I have this really amazing letter. It's the one that's right on the bottom.
Oh, tell me.
It was from my first teaching year, and every educator needs to think about, if they don't have a box, keep the box,
Right,
right? And I talk about it in the mentoring.
Yeah.
I do the mentoring program at the beginning of the year with all of our new staff, and I talk about this. This letter came from a 7th grade student, right? And we had finished up the unit that I was just talking about with these kids in rural New York, and I had this opportunity to kind of show them what real life biology and medicine really looks like. We set up a theme. People were going to die, you know, they were going to catch this, and we had to wipe out this bacteria. And we isolated cultures, and, you know, they told me what they wanted to learn in order to get to their task at the end of it, right? So at the end of the game, if you will, after a period of about 3 weeks, the English teacher next to me came over and said, "Michael, these kids are on task. This is amazing. You know, can I join in?" I said, "Sure. What do you want to offer?" And she wanted to help letter writing. And so what they did is they got fired up over the results. We did zone of inhibition studies. They found their own independent chemicals in their homes, and we used little paper punch outs, which are reminiscent of what they use in a hospital. And you put an antibiotic on it. And you would measure the amount of bacterial growth around those zones of inhibition, right? And so this one little girl, I won't mention her name, got so fired up because the product on its label said, right on it, kills 99% of the bacteria. Right. She got so fired up that she wrote this really long letter with all this data that she had collected, shot it off, right, as part of this lesson, and mailed it to them. And, you know, about, I would say 15 years later, I got a letter from this person. And she had graduated from Yale School of Medicine.
Oh, goodness.
And she had said that class was her inspiration to go to medical school.
Oh, see, and
those are your letters.
That's your letter. That's what you keep. That's what you keep in the box.
Yeah.
Well, boys, it is April, so every April Fool's Day, just to let you know, when I was teaching kindergarten, I would switch the roles and have the students teach me. So at the time, Dr. Johnson was the principal, and he would walk into my classroom and go, "What are you doing?" I'd have my hair in curlers, right? And they'd do my nails at snack time and call me Little Laura. because they were, that's what I wanted to do at my snack. And then they would teach me how to do letters and sounds and identify numbers and do groupings with counters. And it really, it was the day I cried every year.
Now, this is kindergarten, first grade?
Kindergarten. Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
you'd sit on Friendship Landing, our little rug, and they would teach me. And it was just joyous. And so that's where I found the joy, to
those
see,
moments.
identify what do they know.
Yeah. From administrator to a classroom, I was an alternative school teacher for a number of years, always secondary. So I was trying to overcome the spark that may have been removed from our students growing up, but getting those letters from students that are past, this is my family, this is my life. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for having those moments.
That's it.
Missouri, we call it the smile file. You got to keep your smile file.
Oh, I love that.
And that was the piece in. But
love
again, it's
that.
the remembering the whole piece. We don't. You don't get involved in the jobs that we do because you want money or power or things
Right.
like that. You get involved in the jobs that we do because you care about kids,
Right.
and you want to use those opportunities to make a difference in kids' lives. We're not as close to the students as we were in a classroom, but it doesn't mean that our focus isn't laser focused on their outcome. We just have a few
true.
layers to do that whole thing.
That's true.
And that's the beauty of it, because like we talked about our portrait of an educator, an administrator, and all that stuff, it all comes back down to student outcomes. And it comes down to one simple thing: loving kids because they deserve it.
Yeah.
As we
That's
go.
true.
And that's pretty awesome.
Okay, you
What a-
conduct
what
the
a
interview,
fun
I know.
thing. I know.
But
For hours.
to think this letter, this little student went from Mr. Bessette's classroom to Yale Medical School.
Yeah.
That's pretty
I hope
amazing,
she was
isn't it?
very successful.
I'm sure
Yes,
she was.
yes,
'Cause
I'm
she wouldn't have
sure
written the
she
letter if
was.
she wouldn't
Yeah.
have been. As we
I
go
know.
from there. But
It's true,
again,
makes my
that's the
heart
lighting
happy.
of the spark.
Yep, it is.
And that's the beauty of those things. And we get to see those every day in our classrooms here in Kearsarge.
It's wonderful. Well, Mr. Bessette, thank you as always for joining us.
spring.
It's,
Yeah,
happy
happy
spring.
spring.
It's wonderful. I know.
And so since it's spring forward, we get to spring forward and not do the question.
No, we get to spring forward, and you get to be here for the question.
Or as
And it's a
always.
really good one, though. We're going to be talking about college and college entry, and so it's a hopeful
As an
one.
old high school principal,
Right.
hopefully I have some answers on that one.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michael, for
welcome.
joining
being
us.
here.
We appreciate it. We'll be back. And what's the name of our show?
The Cougar Chronicle.
Got it.